James, I'm so happy to have you here with us in Kai interview. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Really glad to be here.
Great, great. So let's start by telling us a bit about you.
Yeah, sure. So I've got a relatively interesting sort of career history. I've 10 years of paramedic in London, going to major incidents, and then seconded into the Olympic command team. I've been an emergency planning manager, dealing with disasters all over the country. I've been a manager in healthcare, private healthcare, and within that, that's where I began my coaching life. I've worked at a university, and now I'm a full-time transformational coach. So I've jumped around a bit, got all sorts of different experience with people from the man on the street right up to lords and ladies in the Houses of Parliament. I've spoken to them all, and I really like talking with all sorts of different people.
Oh, fascinating, fascinating. So in a way, you're into disasters in some scale.
So that's sort of, I'd say, my background. And then as I've sort of evolved through my career, I've learned that actually what it was dealing with people and speaking with people. So, you know, on an ambulance, taking it back to the very basics, you're dealing with another human being and you're having a really important interaction with them when they're probably at one of their lowest points in life. So it's, yeah, and everyone's different, and I really value variety and different opinions and different people and meeting people from all walks of life. So hence going from that side, yes, there was disaster stuff, but and yeah, it was exciting, I'm not going to lie. But yeah, it's really about the people I've discovered over the years. That was why I was doing it, rather than being the gung-ho hero. It was meeting lots of different people and discovering stuff, and yeah.
In a way, like we love to call the difficult things in life challenges nowadays. But you know, we are all going through minor or big disasters throughout our lives. It really depends how we frame it. So you chose, like you can choose where you want to make a difference, and
Absolutely,
you chose
yeah.
transformational coaching, transformation, change. It's like one of the most difficult things I think that we can go through. So
Yeah.
how do we start?
How do we start? Okay, so I always say the most important place to start is being self-aware of who you are. If you don't know that, then you can't step back and view yourself and what's going on. Otherwise, you're just living in your own little bubble, and you're never going to understand what you need to do to take yourself to wherever you want to go. So for me, the key thing about transformation is understanding yourself first. And if you can do that, you're pretty much halfway there. It's then just a process of keeping change happening in whatever way you want it to. So I tend to do a lot of work on values and strengths and weaknesses, and really dig into who the person is when I speak with my clients, and what makes them tick. And when I focus on sort of, you know, some people may come to me for career coaching, I really work out for them what the key things around their personal values are. And then if that will translate well into whatever it is they're thinking of doing. And if there's a sort of a clash there, then it's probably not going to be the best career for them. So yeah, change I always see as a positive. Obviously it can have negative connotations, but I think, you know, that change is as good as a rest, they say. And certainly that's true for me. It's just taking that change and putting a positive spin on it, that there's a new opportunity or something's going to be different, that you're going to learn something new. So for me, it's that my whole life is a learning process, and I will never ever stop learning. And I think if you can approach it in that way, change, transformation, it becomes interesting. So yeah, self-awareness, continual learning, they're the two things I think that are really key.
So you say that to be aware, it's a starting point, because without that, we don't know who we are, where we want to go. And then you talked about values and exposing the difference between our values and the way that we behave, we act.
Yeah. So let me try and think of an example. So say you have a corporate banker who says that their core value is compassion and I don't know, something else, but maybe what they're doing and what their core values say about them doesn't necessarily match up. And I'm not having a go at corporate bankers here. I'm sure there are some very compassionate ones, of course, but that's just the first thing that came to my head. But yeah, it's just being able to spot the differences and maybe the contradictions where someone says that this is my core value, but actually what they're doing doesn't necessarily show that they're living that value. And that may be where that change could happen, or if it's not, they're not possibly happy with what they're doing because there's that contradiction or that sort of clash between the values and the reality of where they are.
So we discover a difference between our values and how we actually live our lives. And I guess then there's an action we need to take. What's the next step?
Yeah, so I tend to understand where they are. And this goes back to the really simple grow model. So, this goes back maybe 20, 30 years, this model of coaching. And it's finding out what they want as well. So you find out where they are, what their goal is. And that's really important, where they want to go. And then you've got the current reality, so who they are, what their situation is at the moment. And then we start to look at what their options are. So you could go down this route, you could go down this path, or you could go down this path, and you start to explore those with them. And ultimately, you then ask them, well, what will you do? What are you going to do about that in order to get from here to here? And it's a very simple model, but it's really, really effective if done well.
So it's really simple, and I want to give you like even simpler script and hear how you would approach it. So most of us would easily say, for me, it's important to be healthy, right? Like it's super simple for most people. And most people will tell you, I know what I need to do. Let me exercise a few minutes a day and just eat healthier food. And I know it will improve my health dramatically. I also know
they don't necessarily do it.
They necessarily don't do it. Most don't do it. And that gap between, okay, so I understand what I want and what I need to do, then actually take the action. How do you help with that gap?
Sure. So I think it's key to understand why they're not actually taking that action. And if they know that they should be doing it and they know that it's good for them, why are they not doing it? And it could be for a variety of reasons. It could be to do with they're not that committed to it. They kind of know, but they're comfortable where they are and they don't want to put themselves into stress and pain of getting to that place because maybe they're unfit, or maybe they really like pizza and they don't like salad. So it's looking at the sort of the things that are keeping them where they are and stopping them starting the journey. And often that's around fear. Taking that first step is the hardest part, I always say. So it's understanding what's holding them back, and then helping them to understand actually fear is a good thing, because it's our brain's way of saying there's something beyond there. And our old brain that goes back to our ancient times is always trying to stop us from getting hurt or damaged in some way. And it's fearful of what will happen in the unknown future. So it says, no, don't change. This is quite comfortable. This is nice. This is good here. Let's not go beyond that. So when you feel that fear and that uncertainty around the future, I always say, take that step, because that's a good sign that something good is going to happen and something new is going to come from it. So yeah, understanding what's holding them back, and then you start to work on those things. So sometimes, sorry, yeah.
I want to jump here, okay, because you talked about a few really, really important and interesting things. So I want to stop and ask about the pain, okay? Because when most of us, at some level of pain, we will just take action. That's why pain is there. Yeah, it drives us to take an action.
Yeah.
But for most people, in many cases, the pain is not strong enough. So my love to pizza is stronger than my pain of being too fat or not that. So I'm not super fat and I'm not really sick.
Yeah.
But I'm not that healthy as I wish to become. So the pain is not strong enough to make me say I won't touch pizza, or I will eat pizza only once a month. Yeah. And I think that like when in the extremes, it's relatively simple. Okay, they put, but when it's not that difficult, when the pain is not that strong. It's there. Our life, my life is not that bad,
Yes.
but it's also not as good as it could be. So what will make me get up from the couch, put the pizza aside, and take action?
Yeah, and it's going to be different for every individual, but like we were talking about previously, it's about these habits and starting a daily habit, but you've got to start it. So it's helping people to just take that first step, and that is probably the biggest step of all. And so I guess the pain piece around that is you could show them what the future might look like if they don't do that, or if they carry on the way they're going. And coming from a healthcare background, I've seen people who haven't made that change, and sometimes it doesn't end well for those people. So you don't want to scare people, but you just want to show them the options of their future, and what the benefits are, and what the non-benefits are of not doing it, and then just help them start that journey, and then small incremental steps. And sometimes I think people see that end goal as way too far in the distance and unobtainable, and even if it's like just to get a bit more healthy, they see this huge gap in between where they are and where they want to be. So it's breaking that down into tiny little pieces, and taking it one day at a time. Just gently pushing and have an accountability partner, maybe, to sort of, if they have a bad day and they haven't done it, maybe there's someone on the end of an app or end of the phone just saying, how'd you get on today with your exercise? Oh man, I haven't done it today. Okay, well, let's look at why you haven't done it, and then how about you do it? Let's do it. Come on, keep going. So just having that person that's going to hold them accountable, just push, but in a gentle and supportive way. And some people may want a really forceful push. Others may need a bit more support and a bit more gentle sort of coercion into carrying on, because they ultimately want to get to their goal. And if they need help to do that, then that's what we as coaches are here for, ultimately.
That makes perfectly sense. So, James, we are approaching the end of this interview, and I wanted to ask you what question I didn't ask you and I should have.
I would have asked me, what makes me a great coach?
So, James, I have a question for you. What makes you a great coach?
Okay, so we spoke about fear earlier, and I'm someone who understands that I have fears and that they are scary, but I always try and embrace them. And whenever I see something that makes me scary, I sort of think, oh man, I know I have to do something here, and I know that it's going to be good for me if I do it. So I've lived that kind of that experience, and I understand where people are coming from when they have that fear. So I think that's where I can really help people. I'm also not afraid to be vulnerable with people. So if I'm not sure about something, I'll just name it and I'll say it, and then we work through that together. So me being vulnerable allows other people to be vulnerable, and that builds a massive amount of trust, which is so important when you're dealing with what can be quite sensitive issues sometimes. So yeah, those are my two coaching superpowers, as I call them.
Overcoming fear, which is a braveness, and vulnerability.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Oh, yeah. Having said that, scary.
It always is. But thank you for being vulnerable and be able to say it. I really want to thank you for this interview, your insights, experience, and sharing it with us. Thank you very much, James.
Thank you for having me. It's been really great fun.
Perfect.